But our final story of the night looks at the Sun's campaign against the Islamic State. Some British Muslims, however, feel they're also in the frame. Yasmin Khatun reports.
As the British newspaper's anti-IS campaign heads into its second day, many have been left puzzled as to what its implications are. Is there a need for British Muslims to take a stand? And if so, why?
So many Muslim women here to support...
The campaign from the Sun newspaper is lined up with the counter-extremism group Inspire. Inspire launched the Making a Stand campaign to prevent young Muslim women from supporting groups like IS. Sara Khan, the woman behind the group, has received messages of support from Prime Minister David Cameron, Ed Miliband and Home Secretary Theresa May. But to many within the Muslim community, she's a controversial figure. I spoke to Sara to ask her why she launched the campaign and if she thinks it appeals to mainstream Muslim sentiment.
Having spent around 5 years delivering countering extremism programmes with Muslim women from across the UK, it was the one thing that women kept telling us, that they wanted to do more to counter extremism. And with the birth of the Islamic State, or the so-called Islamic State, women were outraged. They were outraged at this group committing acts of brutality and murder in their name, in the name of their faith. But also there was a feeling of fear and helplessness that women have constantly told us that they fear maybe that their child could become the next person who will become groomed or preyed on. The Sun's campaign actually has been very inclusive. I mean, if you look at it today and yesterday, they've got a wide ranging of different voices. They've got politicians, they've got faith leaders, they've got, you know, all sorts of different groups. And for me personally, it's the voices of young people that I hear coming out loud and clear from the Sun. It's the voices of not only just young Muslim men and women, but just ordinary British people, and I think their voices really count in this.
In the streets of East London, we asked people in the most densely populated Muslim area in Britain what they thought of the campaign.
I see it as though, I mean, why do we have to respond? Why do we have to react? Why is it that we can't be proactive instead of reactive? And I think that's for me, I didn't respond to it because I feel like, every time we have to jump to other people's tunes, and it should be the other way around, really.
I really believe we have not to say it's not us. It's obvious. Everyone knows a Muslim. Everyone knows any Muslim is not a terrorist, is not. Otherwise, we'll all be in blood and we'll all be in a war. So it's important also not to protest or not to, and to say we have not to protest. So it's important because I believe a lot of people will not understand. I think of the grandmother who is always on TV, see massacres in the name of Islam. So for this kind of people, it is important, but we have also to say no, it's not our fault, and we are not compulsory. We don't have to protest.
Bad Muslims, good Muslims being moderates who want to change and distort passages of the Quran, a la Majid Nawaz or somebody of that sort. And bad Muslim is someone who wants to be on the haqq, be on the truth. That would be a bad Muslim.
Amid an increased amount of rhetoric on defining what an acceptable form of Islam is within British society and proposed anti-terror measures from the government seemingly targeting British Muslims, campaigns like these are looked at with great suspicion, with the feeling that they're set to demonise anything outside of rigid boxes. Here in Britain there's a broad and diverse Muslim community, but many are asking, is it necessary to place a Union Jack across their window to render loyalty? From what we can see about this campaign, the majority are saying it's not in their name. Yasmin Khatun, The Report.
Joining me in the studio to discuss this story are Dr. Salman Butt, Editor-in-Chief at Islam 21C, and Khalil Charles from the Muslim Association of Britain. Welcome to the programme, both of you. Salman, the Sun not renowned as a sort of big friend of the Muslim community. That front page make you feel a bit queasy?
Yes, to be honest, and judging by the responses, I'm not the only one. I've seen a lot of Muslims writing, for example, in Huffington Post and The Guardian, just highlighting how, frankly, absurd it is for them to do this, and some writers have been suggesting, malicious intention as well.
What do you reckon?
I think just because you share a common identity with a criminal doesn't make you a criminal. I don't think I can understand how many Muslims feel that we are being asked to voice opinions and to denounce people who have no link at all, that we don't share the ideology that they have. And it's total anathema to what we believe. And so to be continually asked to state your case is almost putting the case of the good Muslim and the bad Muslim, and we're supposed to justify in which bracket we are. And it's also a case of saying, well, you have to authenticate the fact that you are part of humanity, that you know, as a human, you condemn these things, and of course we do. And I think this is the thing that I also want to express, is where us, for example, at the Muslim Association of Britain, we have condemned in no uncertain terms these actions. However, the publicity that we receive around those statements of us is very little in compared to the publicity that is pumped up around the events of the beheadings and the other incidents, which of course I understand are deeply, deeply upsetting. But when we're put on the spot to try and defend those things, 9 times out of 10 when we do, it seems to fall on deaf ears.
In addition to that, it's not... organizations that are grassroots based, such as the MAB, such as MCB and so forth, and general organizations, they really don't get the same kind of exposure as organizations that are singing the same tune as this particular government's prevent agenda. And you see this with the Muslim organizations involved with this peace and sun, with this campaign in the sun. And it's indicative of you know, a very insidious campaign, in my opinion, against...
What do you think they're thinking? Because, I mean, they can't be unaware of the Sun's record on this matter. They can't be unaware that the Sun only does this when it has some ulterior motive. What do you think they're thinking?
I don't like to, you know, say bad things generally about people, but the particular organizations involved in this, Muslim organizations, they are cogs in a giant so-called anti-extremism or counter-extremism industry, which is a very lucrative one. Obviously there are some people within the government who have a hostile agenda towards Muslims. This is undeniable. And the way this manifests itself is turning the problem of terrorism, turning the problem of criminality by some certain Muslim groups into an issue, or using it as an opportunity to cast suspicion on the whole Muslim community at home here. This is...
So do you see it as a kind of journalistic version of the kind of prevent scheme where the government, you know, attempted to sort of co-opt sections of the Muslim community? It was described and became discredited because it was an internal spying operation, some said.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's undeniable that there are some aspects of the media that are wholly complicit to this agenda, to this failed strategy, so-called strategy. And the sad thing is, it's actually making us more unsafe as a country, because this is by alienating people, by casting suspicion on people, by turning them into some kind of bogeyman, is only going to make them defensively, even if they're just culturally Muslim, it's going to defensively make them defensively adopt the kind of anti-establishment persona that just feeds into this vicious cycle.
Do you think one thing that the Sun's up to? I mean, the Sun has been famously in favour of every bombing campaign and war that there's ever been, and probably a few that didn't take place as well. Do you think its business here is to try and, if you like, corrode the opposition to those that have been there in large sections of the Muslim community?
Well, I think there's a distinction to be made of Muslims who are extremists and Muslims who don't agree with the foreign policy of this government. If you're a non-Muslim and you come out, as thousands, maybe millions of people have done so, to protest against various things associated with the Stop the War Coalition, etc., that doesn't put you in the bracket of being an anti-disestablishmentarian. That doesn't put you in the bracket of being, not loyal, unpatriotic to this country. However, if you express an opinion as a Muslim that do this, and I don't want to say that we're victimized in any sense, but there are, differences of opinions. The Muslim Association of Britain has expressed the view 10 years ago when they went to war in Iraq that this would fuel more and more terrorism, fuel more and more terror. And I think, unfortunately, we've been vindicated by that, because Qaeda has been replaced with an even more pernicious, even more vicious sort of people who are claiming that they're doing that in the name of Islam. So Qaeda, as we know, wasn't in Iraq at the time that that war took place. And so how does the government or anyone everybody else feel that by going in and bombing and creating, you know, hundreds of thousands of people being displaced, as we're seeing in Kobani at the moment. I'm not, of course, in any way defending the vicious actions of these people called ISIS, but at the same time, that we've now been drawn into a situation where we are fighting on the ground with Kurds, etc., and people are being forced to flee from their homes and are under attack. And then there's a justification that unless we did this, the terror wouldn't stop. I'm not so sure.
What do you think? Clearly are some Muslims who support this campaign. There's been no opinion poll, but if you're asked to guess, what would you say the kind of proportions inside the Muslim community who sort of feel supportive of what the Sun's doing and those who feel that they don't?
I mean, on the face of it, the Sun may come across to somebody maybe who's not clued up with the intricacies of the politics behind it. It may seem like a good gesture because they see, you know, they're trying to be inclusive, quote unquote. However, I don't think Muslims, to be blunt, are that stupid that they're going to en masse just open the windows and shout from the rooftops, "We condemn ISIS, we join this campaign from the Sun." And this is what one writer in The Guardian suggested was, you know, the intent behind this action of the Sun, that they know that Muslims aren't en masse going to obey the Sun and start condemning ISIS openly, thus, you know, turning them into some kind of suspect community just because they won't condemn. It's either you condemn or...
This whole question of sort of patriotism in Britain is in any way, it's a contested one. I mean, do you feel warmer because there's a country just north of the border where 45% of the population did a wildly unpatriotic thing and voted to leave?
Yes, indeed. People forget that. People forget that by voicing opinion which is different to that of the status quo doesn't necessarily make you unpatriotic. It's extremist. It's voicing a different view. Now, the views that we voice as the Muslim Association of Britain have always been consistent, and that is we think that war begets war, and fear begets fear, and terror begets terror. And so if you're going to go along that road, you're going to expect that there will be some people who will be fueled by this. I mean, many commentators have said that we've played right into the hands of ISIS by calling up our troops, by bringing in Air Force to bomb them. This, in a sense, is going to give them more credence as if you like, as an entity, as an organisation which is worth addressing, an entity which cannot be solved unless the big guns come in and sort this out. But what we've seen is a lot of people leaving to join ISIS. I say a lot. The 500 from this country. There are, of course, across Europe, swathes of people who have also gone. And these, if you like, are disenchanted people who have got a disconnection with the societies they live in. And I've said before, it's almost as though it's joining some big gang that's going to give them some kind of action they're going to see that they wouldn't otherwise see in their lives. And so I don't think this is a religious issue. I don't think it's ever been a religious issue for those in charge. And this is solely a political issue and if you like, a push for power.
Yeah, that's indeed some of the more intelligent commentary on this is beginning to tease those arguments out. Well, gentlemen, both, thank you very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for on this episode of The Report. My thanks to my guests for coming in and to you at home for tuning in. Remember, you can keep up with us on Twitter by following @IslamChannel and by using the hashtag #TheReport. We'll leave you with some footage from China, where astronomy enthusiasts have been able to observe a rare lunar eclipse. We'll be back as soon as the moon rises tomorrow, but until then, good night.